we know that the average age of our waitlisters are, half of them are over the age of 60. We did a beneficiary study that came out a month ago. The majority of our waitlisters being over 60, they also want single family homes. They're at a point in their lives where they're not really willing to take undeveloped raw land. They want a house. And if not a house, they want a vacant lot, but they want the infrastructure with it. And I'll talk about what that cost looks like. But we have to acknowledge that many of these ohana are aging. And so it's not as simple as just giving them land, even if it was, and we'll talk about cost in a little bit, just dividing the land up itself is a very expensive task. We know that at the current rate of development, it'll probably take us 182 years to clear the wait list. And that's assuming no one else joins the wait list. And that's that number is so big. Like, what else do you do but start to think creatively about how to address it? And we know that over 2,000 Native Hawaiians have died on the wait list. And so that element of not having, I guess that element of knowing that 182 years is too long, 2,000 lives is too many, those are all motivating factors. And then the last is the issue of cost. First of all, it's not as simple as just giving out raw land, just putting the pins in it, and that alone, giving somebody the clear delineation of what their property is, that would be significant cost to the department. But even then, well into the majority of beneficiaries want, at the very least, infrastructure, if not a home on the lot. It costs the department $150,000 per lot for sewer, water, electric, roads, basic infrastructure. If we did that for every single person on the wait list, that's a minimum of $4.5 billion. That doesn't take into consideration all of the complications that come with planning and development. Every geography and its geology is different, and so those costs could increase or decrease depending on the area. And when you think about the 20 to 30 million we get annually in CIP, the big question, like we talked about, is where is the funding going to come from? And that was really the launching point for the bill, which was definitely controversial, and it elicited a number of opinions, and they were all valid. And I think it was really important for our community to have a real discussion that got us all to the point saying, at the very least, we need more money. We may not all agree on the vehicle to get there, but I think that's huge, because even though I'm a nerd. I've been in our library reading annual reports dating back to 1921 in my spare time and in the evenings. That message has been repeated almost every year for 100 years. There has not been a year where we didn't suggest that funding was the problem. I think the struggle we had is getting everyone else on the same page to be able to have that discussion and to all raise it together. And so I think a bill like this helped us communicate better and build a fluency with all our beneficiaries around that really basic concept of there's not enough money right now to do all the things that we want to do. Because we're not just building lots, right? We're maintaining 3 separate water systems, which we can't turn over. Every year we're paying millions of dollars in infrastructure maintenance that the city is responsible for, but will not take over. We're paying for the costs of upkeeping our existing homesteads. So it's more than just the $4.5 billion for infrastructure. It's really about what other ideas are out there to make the department sustainable. And so I'm happy to talk about the bill, although I think at this point it might be a moot point. If folks have questions about the bill, we're happy to answer them. But I think, where do we go from here is a really, really awesome opportunity for our community to say, all right, legislators, you weren't into the idea of this bill. What are you going to do to increase the amount of funding that comes to the department? It's one thing for folks to agree with us that we need funding, but for those who have the ability to make that happen, I think the department's question to them is, all right, what's your big idea? And so I think that's where we stand now. Dre, happy to, if there's questions about the bill or about any of that stuff I just threw out, I think that might be a good conversational starting point.
Sure. So we can open up the floor to some questions about any of the points that our Deputy Director just raised. Anyone? Unmute and go ahead and ask. No one is unmuting. Remarkable. Oh.
Hi, this is David. I'll kick things off, Dre. First of all, wonderful meeting.
Great, thank you.
Just a quick question. A lot of what I know about this issue, I read in the newspaper, and I'm just wondering, do you feel you're getting a fair shake in the Star Advertiser and other publications, or it's an opportunity for you to provide a rebuttal if you feel otherwise, and part of the story isn't being told? Thank you.
That's a really great question. I would say that in terms of getting a fair shake, I'd say the coverage and the tone of these stories certainly improved in favor of the department the longer we got out and the more opportunities we had to educate. But I think honestly, a lot of the reports missed the mark, and the discussion got very mired in the sort of sensationalist and the emotion of the issue, and it took away the opportunity for us to have like an actual debate on the merits. And I think every piece of legislation deserves a meritorious debate, and I think a lot of the early news coverage really just incited a specific response. Very few people read the bill from the get-go. We experienced even the reporters oftentimes they were openly candid in interviews where they're like, oh, we hadn't read that, so we didn't know that was the fact. And I think that continued all the way through the end. There was misinformation. Maybe that's due to misunderstanding on our part of not effectively communicating, but I think there was a combination of folks not really digging in to see what we proposed and us battling that current of not really getting a fair shake from the beginning. But like I said, I think towards the end, and today there was a really great article from a scientist who actually testified in support of the bill both times. But I thought that was a really great analysis of the merits of the arguments versus, the more prevailing narrative of gambling's bad, which I'm not here to like fight with people. If you have a personal feeling that gambling is bad, I respect that, but we never really got past that in the conversation. So I think I wouldn't say that the reporting was necessarily wrong. I think it just didn't get us focused and talking about the right elements of the issue.
Thank you. But just a quick follow-up. My personal experience with the media, and I think they get largely a bad reputation, but is a little bit lazy. I mean, if you spoon feed it, it works much better. If they have to work hard for it, quite often they just don't have the time to do it, I think. But thanks, I appreciate your response.
Thanks, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think in the last maybe 2 years, the department has really stepped up its ability to put out really strong press releases, as much information as possible, and we can always endeavor to be better and flood our news outlets with more information rather than less. I think there was also an element of rebuilding our own credibility. I only came into the department a year and a half ago. For the better part of the last 20, 30 years, generally, the department has been cast in a negative light. So I think building credibility is also a huge part of it, and that's something we're working on. So hopefully one day, we'll get to a point where we're able to get our message out really effectively through the media.
Sorry, my mouse was broken. Okay, any other questions? No questions.
Okay, we can also, I mean, oh, go ahead, Dre.
No, we usually have like a bunch of fun questions. I'm a little sad about this. I know you have some other things that you want to share, so why don't you go ahead and share what you have, and then I'm sure we'll get you know, some questions in response to that too.
Yeah, I think we can talk a little bit about what's still alive at the legislature. You know, we can always use support in keeping those measures alive. Lehua, would you be willing?
Sure. So the commission, we took to the commission 16 legislative proposals, which is a lot larger than a normal typical legislative package. And part of the idea was we were either going to try and generate revenue, which was what we were trying to do with the casino bill, or the other end of the spectrum, which is to reduce costs. So I'll just try to move through some of them, or to give more, I guess, I don't want to call it support, advocacy for the commission and the department. So our first proposal is a proposal that's been around for many years at the legislature. It's to allow the department to have independent counsel. And so unfortunately, because the Attorney General's office continues to oppose this bill, we continue to face an uphill battle. But as of right now, we still have two vehicles alive. We have a House bill and a Senate bill still alive as of right now. Our second proposal would have allowed for the chairman of the Hawaiian Homes Commission to serve on the Water Commission. As you folks know, water is another big issue for our beneficiaries. Unfortunately, both of our vehicles for that are not alive this session. And so water, I think, is an area we need to work on with both two new persons heading up those committees, Senator Inouye and Representative Karnes. And so we'll make hopefully make some strides for next session. Another sort of advocacy bill is to allow for the chairman of the Hawaiian Homes Commission to serve on the Board of Agriculture. Again, because we do award ag leases, to have that advocacy efforts for our beneficiaries is a critical piece. We do still have both the House and the Senate bill alive on this issue. Another bill, this is more of a cost savings bill, would exempt the department from school impact fees. The department has had land withdrawn for schools. We have charter schools, we have early learning schools on our land. And on top of that, we need to pay school impact fees. And so we testified that this can amount to a significant amount of funds when we're developing, like say, our next subdivision we're planning on Maui, Pu'unani. And so again, if we can be exempt from those fees, again, that's fees that we would have had to pay, we can now use to develop more homesteads. We have a House bill still alive on that measure. Another area is to exempt the department from general excise taxes when we're developing homesteads. And so we do have a Senate bill that's going to cross over to the House. In the water spectrum, again, we're trying to advocate for more representation. We have water credits per se, or water that's allocated to the department, but turning that into wet water, like we say actual water that we can use, is a challenge. And we also face issues at the county level. So it would allow for more advocacy and the boards of water supply. And so we have the Senate bill that's still alive for that measure. There was an issue that we tried to raise for water rights. And again, you know, the Department of Hawaiian Homelands and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs in DLNR, we get some of the revenue that's generated from water licenses. And yet over time, through our Native Hawaiian Rehabilitation Fund, we've seen these funds decrease. And so needing to look at how we can generate more revenues. Unfortunately, that's one of the bills, again, that we don't have a vehicle alive this session. We were actually accused by the chair of being too innovative. That's a shocking surprise for us. But in any event, again, I think water is an area that we can stand to improve upon with two new chairs in the House and the Senate. Next is infrastructure maintenance. You know, a lot of what the department faces is we have funds that go to just maintain our infrastructure. And thanks to Dre and her efforts when she works for the department, she worked on legislation that required the counties to take over sewer. Unfortunately, as you know, one of the compromises was we needed to get it up to county standards. So we're working on that. But in the meantime, we have a lot of other roads and sidewalks and things that really is county functions that should be with the county. And so we do have a proposal that the county will take over these costs. And we do still have a Senate bill alive on that issue. Historic preservation.
Too bad nobody who works for the county is on the call. Too bad.
No, you didn't hear that now, Dre. And then for historic preservation, Chair Aila has really wanted to see how the department can possibly take on this responsibility of doing historic preservation instead of relying on the Department of Land and Natural Resources. And I think many state departments and counties face challenges when everything is going to SHPD. So, it's proposing to allow DHHL to do its own historic preservation. And so we still have the Senate bill alive for that vehicle. Another area for us has been contested case hearings. As you folks have seen in the news was reported recently, there was a game room, we've had abandoned vehicles. And so when it comes to criminal activity or any drug-related activity, we want to expedite contested case reviews in that regard. And so again, we do have a Senate bill. We'll see, it's a single referral. We'll be pleading our case to Senator Rhodes to hear that bill. And then finally, another bill would allow us to do remote contested case hearings as more, I think we've all become more accustomed to using conference technology such as this, like Zoom. Again, even the courts are using it. So can we utilize this kind of technology to allow for us to have contested case hearings on a more regular basis? Because for now, a lot of times what happens is we don't hold those until the commission is meeting on island. And on some islands, it's only once a year. And so we have both a House bill and actually the Senate bill should cross over. And we also have a House bill alive. And then of course, today what happened with the gaming bill got deferred. We have a number of other measures, just so you're aware, that relate to Hawaiian homes, but none of those were introduced by us, but we weigh on those measures. But the ones I spoke to were actually part of our legislative package.
I just want to add one bill. Was short form introduced by Senator Shimabukuro to allow the department to do medical marijuana on Hawaiian homelands, which is funny because we actually had a beneficiary reach out during our outreach last spring asking if we'd write a bill like that. We did at their request. We took it to the commission. The commission was no way Jose on medical marijuana, and they killed our bill before we could even take it to the legislature, which is just, it's funny that it found another way to go in, but yeah, we're open to considering anything to increase revenue. It's a lofty discussion.
Okay, any questions about the bill or any of the subject matter? Oh my God, again, so sad. Yes. Max, go. Yes, hello. Go.
Great. Sorry. I'm driving, so my video feed keeps dropping. Anyway, I did want to start and say I do support these concepts, with the gaming and medical marijuana as ways to, generate revenue and increase the kind of services the department can provide, since the existing things in statute, like the minimums that are supposed to come to the department, keep disappearing. But on the on the historic preservation bill, a lot of people in the building industry are kind of concerned that it's like self-dealing. Like if the historic preservation review becomes too burdensome or whatever, you guys will just waiving it. Well, this is our project anyway. So, can you folks kind of expand on the idea for DHHL taking over historic review on our lands?
Yeah, sure. Hold on a second. I'm going to get back into the camera things. So DHHL is a very complex agency, and in some regards, with regards to NAGPRA, which is different from 6E, we are responsible for NAGPRA on our lands. So if there's any burials, if there are any items of cultural patrimony, those kinds of things, it's the commission that makes the decision on the disposition of those items. Where 6E comes more into play, NAGPRA doesn't cover historic buildings. And so, although there is an argument that with regards to the National Historic Preservation Act, that we share responsibility there, we would be responsible technically on the federal side for any historic buildings and the review of impacts on those historic buildings. So I had a conversation with the current administrator at SHPD. He actually feels that it's something that's workable. Their testimony was basically, as long as you follow what 6E requires and the criteria that we use in judging whether there is an impact that is able to be mitigated or an impact that's unable to be mitigated, that as long as we stay consistent with the way that SHPD would review it, they did not see it as a problem. Of course, everybody's going to say the same thing you said. It's the fox guarding the chicken house. But I want to say that as a Hawaiian agency, we would take those responsibilities very, very seriously.
Thank you, Chair. I also had a question on the GET exemption for housing. I work in the housing industry, so I like the idea, but I guess what is the motivation behind putting this into statute now? Okay,
so it already is in statute, but what we have to do is we have to go and apply to HHFDC. They are the grantors of this exemption right now, and this bill simply streamlines that process, and it basically allows us to self-exempt for our projects and for the developers or the construction companies under development by the department. So it simply removes HHFDC and the process that we have to get approval from them for the exemption, and allows us to make the exemption ourselves.
I see. So it's almost similar to how counties are allowed to make those
correct.
certifications.
Yes, Max. And the justification for that is all the housing that we build, 99% of it is affordable housing. So it's the affordable housing component that really justifies the GET tax exemption, because we're trying to bring down the cost of construction, right?
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mahalo for asking.
Great question. Any other very fun and exciting questions from our members? I think a bunch of questions got answered going over your bill package. Anyone?
Dre, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to talk about some amendments to the gaming bill that never made it, which I think your club might find interesting, and perhaps at a later time, if it's taken up again, could be an important amendment. So thanks to Senator Dela Cruz, he had requested and he had recommended that the bill be amended in such a way that the bill acknowledges and reaffirms that the determinative nature of Hawaiian Homes Commission, and it would empower us to decide what is best for the use of our land. So as you know, the commission has jurisdiction over the disposition of Hawaiian homelands, and of course our lands cannot be alienated. So an amendment to the bill would allow the commission the opportunity to decide whether or not gaming should be allowed. Another amendment that was suggested, and it clearly clarifies that the bill from a legislative standpoint does not greenlight the gaming facility, because only the Hawaiian Homes Commission, if the first amendment was in place, would be able to do that. The bill simply would give the Hawaiian Homes Commission the power and authority to make that decision. These are the amendments I'm referring to, yeah? And that the Hawaiian Homes Commission could approve the gaming facility by issuing a general lease or entering into a development agreement with an entity who's prepared to plan, design, construct, and operate and manage it on behalf of the department. The bill would reflect the legislature's belief that it would be up to the Hawaiian Homes Commission to decide if they should act to do so. So this is very interesting, because what it does is it recognizes the inherent sort of self-determinative ability that the commission already has, and it will allow for the amendment would allow for the commission to make that decision. It doesn't just allow the commission to say, okay, well, we're going to have gambling anywhere we want in Hawaii. It was still limited to one license that would be issued. And it's interesting because it would also, one license for gaming, but it would also potentially allow for other forms of gaming should the commission believe that it's in the best interest of generating income to do so. So for example, if the commission would decide, hey, a casino is not what we want, but maybe we're willing to try horse racing or a lottery or bingo, it would give the commission, it would recognize the commission's authority to do these things. The bill would clarify that gaming in Hawaii, should the commission agree to do so, would not entitle American Indian tribes to come and game in Hawaii freely. That was a big concern, especially of the Senate President and the tax foundation. And then, of course, the bill would be amended to include a sunshine deadline of December 31st, 2026 for the commission to conduct beneficiary consultation, exercise due diligence, enter into a development agreement or issue a general lease if it decided to do so. And if it didn't do so by the end of December 31st, 2026, then the bill would sunset, and the self-determinative ability with the exemption from the penalties to the gaming, the civil penalty, the criminal penalties to the gaming, existing gaming law would then sunset, and you would be back to the start of no exemptions to the criminal code. So those were the amendments that were suggested. We thought they had merit. Unfortunately, they were not included, and we were not able to debate that as the bill would have proceeded in the Senate. So your thoughts of folks in the club?
I think in general, right, the acknowledgement of, the commission's ability to be self-determining, I think is a really big deal, especially, coming from a legislator. So I think that's very interesting to hear that was part of the discussion. Related though, just to the general concept of the bill, and I know it's like really premature, but were you approached, or was the department approached by any prospective developers or, gaming establishments about wanting to partner to kind of support moving the legislation forward? Or
we were approached by many folks who wanted to lobby on our behalf for fee, and we told them that we're a state agency, we don't hire lobbyists. But there were many people who gratis offered us advice. There were many gaming groups that were interested in, perhaps if we got it through, being able to bid on such a package. The gaming bill, as deferred, would have, Deputy just walked back in, and maybe we can talk about the taxes, that the revenue that would have come from that gaming bill. I think you would find that interesting. So, yeah, good timing.
Sure.
Kalamai, everyone. Thank you. I had to step out for a really quick call. But the question was about what the tax revenue looked like.
Well, the original question was, were we approached by any players in the gaming industry?
Not significantly, and not until like recent weeks did we really start seeing people say, "Hey, you've caught our attention. Like, if it passes, let us know. We'd love to apply." Which, I mean, that's great. You want to, I mean, if you were to get to that point, you do want a robust and wide field of applicants. But the revenue portion, so we spoke to several experts, all of whom sort of came around this number of 30 million annually, which was based largely on Massachusetts. Massachusetts was the most recent state to legalize gaming. And it was based on their year one gross gaming revenues, which was acquired in the same way through some form of taxation or fees, or a combination thereof. But realistically, everyone was in agreement that 30 million a year was a very, very, very low estimate. We had one estimate come in a lot closer to $1 billion. And that's all very hard to estimate without having a parcel selected, which we very honestly did not, and we thought we were transparent on that. But just simply putting Kapolei in the bill ended up being a huge part of the conversation. But it depends on the size of the property. It depends on the makeup of the machines to tables inside the casino, which are all things that a gaming commission would regulate. So there are so many factors that can contribute. But I mean, even an additional $30 million a year would have been incredible. That's a whole nother CIP budget. That is double the current amount. That's double the amount of projects. That's double the amount of units. Maybe not double exactly, but that is double capacity for sure. And year one gaming revenues generally are lower than year 5 and year 10 as well, because you really develop your identity in the market. Hawaii is really unique in that we're situated in the middle of the Pacific. Asia Pacific has a very, very strong gaming sector and industry. And so while other states or not even states, there are tribes who make over $1 billion a year in gaming revenue. But for many of those locations, great as they are, they definitely don't have the visitor industry infrastructure that we already have in place. They don't have, I think the brand of Aloha and Hawaii is maybe number 2 in the world behind Coke or something like that. I can't remember, but our brand identity is so high. The potential for Hawaii to capitalize on that would have been, incredible, I think. And I understood the fear that, we would be targeting locals, which is why I didn't quite understand why so many people were okay with the lottery and bingo. Those things place the responsibility on our neighbors and our residents to play it and pay for it. With the casino, if you do it right and target it towards the visitor industry, that's a separate market. Visitors aren't really going to come here for lotto or bingo. So the revenue could have been game-changing for the department, but that's not to say that other amazing ideas won't come out of the woodwork because of this, now that we've demonstrated a willingness to take risks.
So just for context, to compare against the $30 million that you threw out, I know you said it's like another CIP, but what is, when it comes to general funds, like what is the department expecting to get from the legislature through appropriation? And like in the, I guess, context of Nelson, like where are we on sufficient sums and all of that?
So, okay, good. In the case of CIP, I think we can expect to receive maybe 18 to 20 this year.
Or CIP about
30.
Operating
is 18.6.
Operating.
Oh, you're right. 18.6, and this is why I should have let Chair take that one. But with Nelson, Nelson's been up and down the Supreme Court twice. The most recent ruling from the Supreme Court had the Circuit Court decide, based on the language of the 1978 Constitutional Convention, where the delegates said that the department's administrative and operating costs would be between 1.3 and 1.6 million adjusted for inflation. They ordered the court to determine what inflation was. Our argument to the Circuit Court was, if you read the very next sentence, the delegates specifically said inflation should be 8%. That would have given us compounded, we'd already be in the $40 to $60 million range annually at this point. The state disagreed and argued that it should be the consumer price index, which is based on the cost of goods to families. And we tried to argue that that's not a comparable way to analyze inflation rate. Inflation of government costs is very different. We brought in an expert who sort of tried to make a middle of the road argument. And the court landed somewhere south of that. So, I mean, long story short, when the Circuit Court ruled on Nelson in the last month or two, I think the amount for 2016 was like 5 million, which is, I can't do very much with 5 million. So, I mean, that's part of the problem, right? Nelson was meant to really lock in that constitutional obligation to provide sufficient funding. The courts found 5 million sufficient annually for administrative operating costs. Never mind the fact that we only have 125 to 150 staff managing 10,000 lessees, 200,000 acres of land across, 6 islands. It's
So if we got what the court ordered, we would have to get rid of 2/3 of our staff.
That's significant. Okay, any other questions from our members? Okay, we're coming up on 6:30. I think some folks in the DHHL side have PBS Insights tonight, so we're all going to tune in again and listen to that discussion. But I'll open up for questions, and then I have a couple other questions kind of unrelated to the casino bill and the rest of the legislative package. But going once, anyone? Any of our members? Going twice? I feel like I should play like that sad wah-wah, like Price is Right music. No? Okay, so in the last 10 minutes or so, I just wanted to ask, one session is Poe, what is the department looking at accomplishing in 2021? Especially now that, come, I believe it's June 9th or July 9th, right, is the centennial of the enactment of the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act. So give us a sense of, one, what 2021 looks like for the department, for the trust, how, a civic club like ours might be able to engage and support some of those activities going forward. And then if you could touch on the centennial, that would be great.
Okay, Dre, the short answer is we're going to try to survive because we have to see what the budget looks like, right? But in the meantime, we have projects in the pipeline. I mean, we have subsistence ag coming on the Big Island in Honolulu. In Kona, we have rent with option to purchase projects that are actually going to be moving people in this year. We have the former Bolodrome site that should be, I think, in construction next year with possible occupancy in 2020, early 2023. So, those projects are underway. We have another 100 homes in Kapolei, East Kapolei, that next year we should be finished with the infrastructure and we should be getting ready to do the vertical. We have a number of miscellaneous lots that are throughout the state that we've been able to rehabilitate or go in and fix problems with. So that number's in the 50 lot range. So all of these will be put up for offer this year. So we're not going to stop doing what we need to do. It might be slowed down, but depends on how we look coming out of the legislature in terms of what our budget is.
Well, I think Chair spoke to what we've done more traditionally with homesteading, but I see Scott on, so I just wanted to touch on, we did get some Department of Treasury money, so we are doing emergency rental assistance that we have out there for people who are in arrears on their rent or on their utilities. And not only do we have those funds, but if we exhaust all of those funds, we're committed to utilizing the HASDA. We're working in ways with Scott on trying to look at some of our beneficiaries who are homeless. We did get funds from the city to do a transitional shelter in Kailua. So these are areas where, in my opinion, the department hasn't done historically, where it's been more homesteading. Now it's kind of like we're moving towards the other end of the spectrum. So again, because Scott was on this call, I just wanted to acknowledge, and some of the partnerships we have to look at how many of those who say they're homeless are actually our beneficiaries. Kale'aina's on the call. I know OHA's been doing work in this arena to acknowledge Hawaiians as a whole, but specifically our beneficiaries is an area we're focusing on. So I just wanted to acknowledge, and then before I really wanted to thank the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs, because the association gave comments on the gaming bill, often weighs in on many of our bills that I spoke to. And so I just really appreciate the work that you folks do and to support Hawaiian organizations and agencies like the HHL. So.
Joey, if I can, I also want to acknowledge Senator Schatz. I think in recognition of us being able to move the NAHASDA funds out, has graciously included $30 million direct to the department through the Department of Homeland through the Department of Commerce to improve and increase broadband services. So I mean that's a significant, I think, recognition to the department. So that's what's in the hands of Tyler right now, and he's trying to figure it out. And we're awaiting the U.S. Department of Commerce to give us guidelines on how the money can be spent. And so we may not have as much state money as we need, but we are fortunate that other forms of money are coming in to assist beneficiaries as well as Hawaiians off the homelands with the.
Sure. So not just with that, so that's 30 million for rapid deployment of broadband services, focusing on improving access for telehealth, telework, teleeducation. And so, like Chair mentioned, once we get the guidance, we'll figure out how to use it. Also, last year, the FCC made broadband spectrum within the 2.5 gigahertz range available to tribes. They very graciously heard us out and they included us. So we have already received the licenses for broadband on Maui, Kauai, and Molokai, and we're waiting on our applications for Hawaii Island. Oahu was excluded, so we'll have to meet those deadlines and rapidly get 2.5 gigahertz off the ground, but we're also thinking of ways to include Oahu because Oahu was not a part of that. We're trying to see what resources we can use to improve connectivity on Oahu as well. And then we're constantly thinking of creative ways to, either grow the money or save it. The state's on a very tight deadline for conversion of cesspools. And so, that is going to be a priority, not just for us, but for all landowners who still have cesspools on their properties. So, we've got a lot of things to look forward to going into the next 100 years.
We have a hand up from one of our members. I don't know if it's Kale'aina or Ken, but go ahead and.
Thanks, Dre. Chair Aila, real fast, because I know you guys got to go. Can you touch on, because this is something that we're monitoring at work at OHA. Can you touch on the proposal for a program to provide down payments for beneficiaries to buy fee simple off of the homelands and then getting them off the list that way? Because that's something that OHA is watching very carefully, because we're working on a different program with the state in general, with the banks, which I can't really get into, but that's something that we're watching really closely.
Okay, I mean, real briefly, what it is the commission has approved a budget and has approved the pilot project to identify some folks that are on the wait list that are almost ready to buy, financially capable of purchasing off the homelands, but they need some assistance with down payment. So the pilot program would actually allow for us to take money that we would have used for infrastructure, right? So that going back to deputy, you know, on Oahu, it's about $150,000 to do the infrastructure under the lot before the vertical can even go up. So this is another way of looking at how do we more effectively spend money to benefit Native Hawaiians on the wait list. And if we can take that for example, very seriously, take that $150,000 and split it up, you know, into 50,000 increments and help three applicants on the wait list who are ready financially, just put them over the edge to obtain that loan to qualify for fee simple land. Then the thought is, you know, that land, the department would have a right of refusal on it. So it's an opportunity to possibly bring additional lands back into the corpus of the trust. If the family, you know, decides that we're going to pay back the department for the down payment assistance, then, you know, they're free to sell the property on the market. There's still some more details that need to be worked out, but that's basically what this pilot program is going to be looking at. I mean, it's something new, and if it catches on, it gets people off the wait list quicker. It possibly could grow the corpus of the trust in terms of lands that become available to bring into the trust, and we just want to get people in homes. That's what we're trying to do.
So, Chair, the pilot budget is only $150,000.
No, the pilot budget is
Million.
$1 million.
$1 million. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Because one of the things I'm trying to work on is trying to get OHA to match that budget so that we can double it and grow it up.
We can have
Yeah,
twice as many people.
Exactly.
Thank you, Kahanu. Awesome.
Great question. Maybe I think we have time for one more question. Anyone want to ask anything? All right, if not, I just have one quick question on, yes.
This is Scott. Sorry, I didn't necessarily have a question, but I really wanted to thank Chair Aila and his staff for really making efforts to help individuals on their wait list who are also experiencing houselessness, and really working to pursue that funding from the city that was mentioned, as well as other strategies to use Nahasda for the houseless population. I'm really thankful for your efforts and leadership. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you for your kokua, Scott.
So I just have one quick question, kind of touching on, programs that I know you're coordinating with Scott on. The rental assistance program that you guys have launched this year. Can you tell us what the level of participation has been? Is it what you expected? Is it?
We expected a higher level of participation when we went with Aloha United Way. We've expended about 1.3 million. So I'm going off the top of my head, over 130 households. The bulk of them are on Oahu. I think 90 something on Oahu, and the rest spread out between Maui, Kauai, and Hawaii Island. Right now, what we just launched with CNHA with the treasury money, right? That's the new 2.4 million that came in. I don't know if it has to do with, so AUW, I think they not only did our program, they did the city's program, they did the state's program. I don't know if it was just an influx of all of these resources all coming to the same 211 number, which we thought would be a good thing, that everyone's going to the same source. But CNHA, given its track record and familiarity with our community, we're hopeful. In the first week, some of the early reports I'm getting is that they're at $250,000 already. That they have quite a bit. But see, this time we're the first. Well, we were the first ones out the gate last time too. Yes. We're the first ones. The county funds are not out yet. So whether that's going to change up once that's available, because there's a number of people who have applied through CNHA who are ineligible, I'm guessing because they're not applicants on the wait list, but they may be native blind. So hopefully when those county programs stand up, they'll be able to get assistance there. But if we go at that pace of about $250,000 a week, if that's what it's going to be, then we could easily crack $1 million in a month and then be out of the 2.4 million in maybe 3 months. I mean, that's pretty aggressive. What we've seen in the past is there's a high like influx in the beginning and then it sort of starts to taper off. I don't know if this will model that same situation.
I would also add, that beneficiary study that we did that came out after we launched the program actually highlighted a really interesting fact. I think it's like 50% of the wait list are homeowners and not renters. And at least for me, that was surprising. So that may also contribute to sort of measuring, engaging the demand for rental assistance. But I mean, it sounds like we should be able to expend the 2.4 really quickly. But I mean, that's just the factoid that some people might find interesting.
And I do want to point out.
Well, that's really good news.
Dre, I do want to point out that we were out of the gate first with the rental assistance. We were also out of the gate first with the mortgage deferral for a direct loan. So sometimes people. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Well, thank you for having the foresight and doing the right thing and making strong and solid decisions to support your beneficiaries and our community. So with that, I think we're coming up on the hour. So thank you so much for coming and sharing. As some of you on the DHHL side of the screen know, the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs has its annual convention. This year it is sometime in November, which means resolutions are due sometime in September, which means our club is going to be deliberating sometime in August. So if there are things that you guys see coming for the next legislative session, please, feel free to, start that dialogue, and not just with our club. I mean, we can bring a number of clubs right to the table who just want to support solid, forward-moving, actions that are, really important for this particular trust and for our community and the Lahui at large. So, we hope to engage with you folks again, either through resolutions that, we'll, consider and then, hopefully take to convention, or maybe a year from now, right? Maybe we make this an annual thing where we have the annual Elizabeth Kahanu Hawaiian Civic Club check-in with DHHL. This has been a great discussion. I hope our members find it very engaging. I'm sure our members who are not here live, but will tune in, will also find it equally engaging. A lot of the time, right, are the videos that we post of our meetings, get viewed hundreds of times. So, thank you for sharing this. Thank you for allowing us to record. And, if you guys have any closing remarks, the floor is yours.
I get one. So thank you, Dre. Thank you everyone for joining the call. We appreciate the time with you folks. We'd love to have this, speaking for everybody here, that we do want to come back on a regular basis to engage with this club and any other clubs that are willing to hear information. I did just want to take an opportunity to get one plug in that Department of Hawaiian Homelands is on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We also have a monthly email that goes out on the first Tuesday of every month that includes a recap of everything that we've done here at the department. You can get that right through the contact page on our website. I encourage everyone on this call or anyone watching this video to follow at any one of the channels that you see fit for yourself. We push out a lot of content. There's no reason why anyone should not know what we're doing. We're very transparent as far as what we have going on. I think Dre is already on my email list, so she gets quite a bit of the pushes that we put out there. So I invite anyone else interested to jump on board and hear the things that we have going on.
Well, I am DHHL alumni, so of course I'm on your email list.
And that was our wrap up.
All right, great. Thank you again. Everyone, you heard Cedric. If you want to engage more directly with the department, you can go to social media, through all those outlets, get on the email list. I gave up Facebook for Lent, so I will wait till April 3rd to check you guys out on the Facebook. But again, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you DHHL for joining us. And what is it, in about an hour and a half? We'll see you guys again on PBS Insights, right?
That's right.
All right. Thank you guys so much, everyone. Have a great evening. Have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you next month on March 18th. Take care, everyone. Aloha.
Thank you all. Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. Bye, Dre. Thanks. Hi, Bevy.
Bye. Thank you.
Hi.
Bye.